Okay, so again, guys, I'm going to be using just a white piece of paper, and this is actually the same size as your contour tricycle project. But again, we're going to be using exactly the same techniques as I'm using today for your oil pastel project, which is next, and the inked self-portrait, which will be after the oil pastel. So your last project of the semester is a painting on a canvas board, so those cannot be attached or glued onto the black paper, so we don't have to mount and label those. All right? All right, so what we're going to do, now you guys have figured out what orientation is going to be. If your project is going to be vertical, you want to make sure that it makes sense that your black paper is also vertical too, okay? So if your project is vertical, your black paper needs to be vertical too. If your paper needs to be horizontal, actually, let me see here, I think you can still make this, I think I'll make it work. You can keep it like this too. Actually make your life easier. Okay. Just so you guys know, you have to have extra paper under this because we're going to put a label and then we have to measure underneath there. If you have your paper like this and you want it to be vertical, you don't have any paper, you don't have enough paper at the bottom for the label plus another inch below that. Okay? So you can put your drawing on the black paper like this if it's horizontal, but if it's vertical, you have to do it like this. Does that make sense? You see that? So I have all this extra paper at the bottom. Sorry, I wish I could make this Epson go a little bit higher. Does that make sense, guys? You want extra paper at the bottom. Got it? Okay. All right, so what we're going to do, the magic number here is 1 inch today, okay? 1 inch is the only measurement that you need to remember for the mounting and labeling. So what you guys are going to do, and I'm going to kind of zoom into this, we're going to start working up here in your top left corner, okay? So everybody work in your top left corner. I am going to zoom this in so we can see a little bit better. What I'm going to do, I am going to measure 1 inch from the top of my paper. And watch me do this first before you do it. I'm going to measure 1 inch from the top of the paper, and I'm just going to make like this dash line or horizontal mark off of that 1 inch measurement, okay? And I should have, yeah. But if you guys notice, I don't have my ruler all the way over here to this side. I'm about 3 inches off of this left edge, and there is a reason for that, okay? I'm going to remark this with a white colored pencil so you guys can see it better on the screen. You need to move over. Okay. So I'm going to do this in white colored pencil just so it's easier to see on the screen. Pencil is just going to be too hard, okay? So I've measured 1 inch from the top, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my ruler, and again, I don't have my ruler all the way up here to the top. I'm going to be about, I don't know, about 3 inches from the top. You don't have to be specific. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 1 inch from the left side now. And I'm going to make my mark kind of nice and tall like that. And again, I'm just 1 inch off the side. Now, for those of you who are using those acrylic clear rulers, keep in mind that the measurements don't start at the end of the ruler. So if you're matching the edge of your ruler to the edge of your paper, you're measuring incorrectly. Okay? So look to see on those clear acrylic rulers where that 0 actually is. Make sure that your paper is matched up to that when you're measuring off of it. Okay? So what you should have right now is a mark up here at the top of your paper in the left corner that's 1 inch from the top and another one that's 1 inch from the left side. Okay, just like that. Okay? The next thing you're going to do is you're now ready to actually glue your project down. Okay? I'm going to zoom this back out. Now, before you guys go and do this, I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay? You guys are going to be using rubber cement, okay? Rubber cement, just like that. The thing that's great about rubber cement is that, one, it's made for art materials, okay? So unlike like Elmer's glue and like a glue stick, those are water-based, so a lot of times that can soak through your paper. The other thing is, too, is that Elmer's glue and even a glue stick, they are more or less permanent adhesive. So if you ever want to take off your project off this black paper, because over time it does sort of get ripped and torn and it looks bad, you can't take it off if you've used those glue sticks or Elmer's glue. This stuff is not permanent, okay? So if you ever wanted to take your drawing off the black paper, it kind of peels off like a sticker, and it's not going to damage your artwork. Now, if you don't use the rubber cement correctly, it will damage your artwork. So you want to make sure that you pay attention, okay? So when you guys use this stuff is quite kind of gloppy, and some of those jars are filled with quite a lot of rubber cement. The first thing you want to do is you just want to wipe off the excess, so you don't have like a huge blob on your brush here, okay? So you don't want a ton. And then all you're going to do, and what I like to do is I like to just, let me get a little bit more here, kind of frame out the corner of my paper. So I'll actually kind of frame it out the corners, and I'll do that. And then I'll take a line from that corner and go to the center. And I'll do that for every corner. So I'll just kind of frame out that, and then drag whatever's left on the brush through the middle. And I'll do this all the way around. Now, rubber cement, again, like I said, if you don't use it correctly, it can be a problem. So if you're using a ton of glue, or you're just literally painting the whole back of your side with a layer of rubber cement, it will damage your artwork in a bad way, and then you'll never get it off that black paper either. So you do not want to do that. So a little bit is all you need. And then when I'm done with all four corners, what I do, and I'll try to put this so it's in the frame, I just take whatever's left on the brush, and it shouldn't be much at all, and I just kind of clean off the brush on the back. And then once you get your paper with the glue on the back, then what you're going to do, you are going to use those marks that you made, and you're just going to anchor it up against those marks. Before I push this down to make it permanent, I want to take my ruler and I want to remeasure, especially over here on these ends. So you can see it's a little too much here. Rubber cement, since it doesn't dry right away, I can move it. So I'm just going to check that measurement here, also down here, and down here. I want to make sure that everything is working. Once it's all okay, and I got an inch all the way up here on the side, an inch all the way over here at the top, then I'm going to press that down. So now it's sticking on there. Now the thing that you need to understand with those contour drawings, because we use the coffee on there, the paper is quite wrinkly. So when you're finished kind of pushing your paper down, put your books on top of it. So the glue will dry while the books are on top and hopefully hold it down to the black paper. You may have to go in and maybe just slip a little bit of extra glue around some of these sides, but that's not a problem, okay? But again, that rubber cement doesn't dry right away, so just put your books on top of it after you get it, okay? So if you guys look over there on the counter, there's a bin with rubber cement. You guys can go get a jar for each person at your table. Okay, so we're going to talk about this label, okay? I'm going to zoom into this, okay? Do this down here. All right, for the label, whenever you fill out the label, you are going to fill it out with the ultrafine Sharpie marker. I do have some kids, what they'll actually do, there, let's see a little bit better. What they'll do is they'll actually fill it out with pencil first, and then they'll go over it with the Sharpie. This label needs to be filled out very nice and neat, okay? So again, this is all about presentation, so you have to make sure that your presentation is clean and it's accurate. It shows, one, how much you care about the piece, okay? But two, it's also about, how you're representing yourself, okay? Sloppy handwriting is not good. All right, so what you're going to do for artist is you're going to put your first and your last name. Please make sure that you properly capitalize your name, okay? So I am going to just put Mrs. Gower on here, but I want you guys to go ahead and put your first and last name on your label, and you can do that right now. And again, if you would like to do this in pencil first and then Sharpie it over it later, that's fine. Everybody's getting, yeah, if the Sharpies are dead, just go ahead and throw them away. That happens on this project. Okay? All right, media. Does anybody know what media refers to? Yeah. Yes, so it has to do with the materials that you guys use to create the artwork. So we can't say Sharpies. Sharpies is a brand name, okay? So what we're going to put down here is marker, and we're also going to list coffee stain. So we're going to say marker and coffee stain. So if you want to wait to just see how this is going to look.
Can I get a new one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. If you guys make any mistakes on your label, you're free to get another label over there.
Where?
They're in the bin right there with the rubber cement. Okay, so marker and coffee stain. I don't know. It's kind of hard to see. Almost ran out of a little bit of room. We're going to skip title for right now. Okay, so just get marker and coffee stain listed there. And again, try to keep your handwriting as nice and neat as possible. Now class, okay, you want to be specific about what class you're in. You're not just in drawing and painting, but you're in drawing and painting 1, okay? So before you write it down, watch this, okay? Gonna write down drawing. You can do the and sign. Painting. 1, as in Roman numeral 1, and then list your class period on there because there are more than one drawing painting 1 class. So I'm not going to put the class period on there for mine since I'm here all day long, but you guys would put either, 5th or 6th bell, depending on what class period you're in. Okay? Drawing and painting 1, Roman numeral 1, okay, not the number 1. All right, the next thing is title, okay? You have to title your artwork. When you create a title for your artwork, it's important that it's valid and that you properly capitalize it, okay? So your artwork has a title just like a book or the name of a song or the name of a story. It's got to be capitalized the correct way. Now, as far as the title goes, when I say it needs to be valid, what does that mean? What does valid mean?
Not taken.
Huh?
Not taken. Like, not someone else's.
No, it could. I have a lot of kids who will have similar titles, and that's fine. Anybody know what valid means? Yes. Yes. So the title has to relate to the artwork. Okay. So you would not call this Bunny Rabbits and Cotton Candy because it really doesn't have, your project has nothing to do with those two things, okay? So you need to make sure that you choose a title that actually relates to the piece. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be very simple, but it can also be very creative. So you can think about, like, what is your drawing, what kind of story does your drawing tell? Or what could it tell? Or what does these objects in this piece represent, okay? It doesn't literally have to, since we're doing the tricycle for the demo, it doesn't have to have the word tricycle or even bike in the title to be valid. So it could be something else, maybe referring to childhood memories or something like that, or a fun time riding, your bike. I don't know. But you can come up with any kind of title as long as it's valid and it's capitalized properly, you'll be just fine. So just to make this easy, just so you guys can see this, I'm going to just write on here my bike, okay? I do not want to see 15 titles of my bike, okay? So come up with your own. All right, but you need to make sure that you capitalize it correctly. So you don't have to fill in the title right now. If you can't think of something right now, you can wait to fill in the title later, like right before we turn it in. A lot of kids, to be honest with you, will leave that blank till the very end. All right? So what are we going to do with these now that we've got the label somewhat filled out? I'm going to show you. I'm going to zoom back out here. This title needs to go onto the bottom of your project. I'm actually going to make this just, yeah. It's got to go at the bottom, okay? So just kind of put it right there. I'm not putting any glue on it right now. Just want to show you what this will look like. So it's got to go at the bottom of your artwork. What you're going to do is you just want to have a little bit of space between the artwork and the label. Not a huge amount, not like that, but just a little amount like this. Then I need your rubber slip. And then what we're going to do, we're going to take that rubber cement again, clean off all that excess glue. You're just going to, I'm not going to worry so much about just doing corners. This is a small piece of paper, so it doesn't take much. You're going to take your label, you're going to glue it so it's in the middle, and you're just going to eye it in the middle. We're not going to measure it out. I think everybody can kind of hit the middle pretty good. Just a little space between the artwork and the label. Make sure that that's nice and straight. Push it down, okay? So I want everybody right now to glue their label down in place. Okay, so now that we have the label on there, you guys will notice, regardless of which way you have your project now, for those of you who have yours horizontal, you might actually have your right side done because the paper is just wide enough, if you did it the right way, that you won't have to cut the right side. But I have too much paper here at the bottom, and I have too much paper over here at the side. So what I need to do is I need to measure, because our border has to be 1 inch. I'm going to measure 1 inch off this right side. I'm going to do it in a couple spots. Actually, I might do it in like 3 spots. Make marks, and then I'm going to draw a line all the way from the top all the way to the very bottom of that paper. And then to get this bottom one, I'm going to measure 1 inch off the bottom and draw a line straight across. Okay? So I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to do that. I'm just going to turn my paper so it's easier. Again, I'm using a white colored pencil so that you guys can see. I don't know what's, I'll kind of zoom this in a little bit. So I'm just going to measure 1 inch off this edge. And I'm going to do this for me, since this is kind of tall. I'm going to measure this about three separate times. So I've got 2 marks, and I'll make another mark down here. And this will just help me make sure that I'm keeping my line hopefully straight. And then I'll go ahead and I'm going to measure 1 inch below the label, okay? And again, I'm going to do this in a couple spots. All right. So here's a little trick that an artist taught me not too long ago, and I'll try to zoom in so you guys can see this. Now, just because you have a ruler in your hand doesn't mean you will actually be able to draw a straight line. It's amazing, I know. A lot of people, when they use these, a lot of times they don't even know it. They have that ruler at an angle, and when they draw their line, it's not straight, it's diagonal. Now, it's great for compositions, but not great when you're doing this, okay? So, if you guys watch, what I'm going to do, I am going to take the very end of my ruler, and I am going to match it up to the very end of my black paper. Sorry about my head getting in the screen. I want to make sure I do this right. Okay. So do you see how I've got the edge of my ruler matched up to the edge of my black paper? That's going to help me make sure that when I do draw this line, it's going to be perpendicular to the top, okay, and not at some wacky angle. And I want to make sure that I'm lined up with my marks. Okay, now on the off chance that maybe my paper is not cut perfectly straight, those corners are not 90-degree angles, if I go based off of this, that'll help straighten it out. Okay, so I'm going to scan back out so you guys can see me draw this line. Make sure that, again, it's marked off. Got my marks lined up. Okay, and then I'm going to draw my line all the way down. All the way down. And I need to kind of pull this. And again, even down here at the bottom, I am going to make sure I take my ruler, match it to the very bottom edge so it matches that. Need to get it lined up with my marks. And then draw the rest of my line. So there's where I need to cut, okay? I'll show that. Okay? Draw your line all the way down, and that's important to draw your line all the way down. You need that for the paper cutter, okay? And then to do the bottom, I'll just flip this upside down. I'm going to do the same thing. Match up my ruler to the marks that I made and to the very edge of my black paper right here to make sure that I actually have my ruler set so it's at a perpendicular angle to that side edge. All right, so once, I moved it. So once I get that lined up, draw my line right across, okay? So now I know where my two cuts need to be. Now before you guys cut, this is what I want you guys to do. Now I'm going to kind of zoom into this to the bottom. Everybody, and don't do this till I finish talking, everybody needs to sign their artwork. This is how artists copyright their work, okay? Is by signing it. That's how you copyright artwork, okay? It's very important that you do that. So when you sign your artwork, we're going to sign here in the bottom right corner somewhere. Now don't do it yet, because I haven't told you how, because there is a way, okay? Whatever you do, do not make your signature huge. Because if you make your signature huge, you're going to take away from all that hard work you did, okay? So that signature is not the star of the show, the artwork is. So when you sign your artwork, make sure that it's small and it's understated, okay? It's just, basically, you're just tagging the piece, essentially, okay? Now, you can use your initials. You can, like for me, my first name's kind of long, so a lot of times I do just S.Gower. I very rarely just do my initials, but you can do your initials too. If you want to just do your last name or just your first name, that's perfectly fine too. You can just write that in there, but you're going to write it small, and you're going to do it with your ultra-fine Sharpie marker, okay? Now, you can get a little creative with this if you want to. If you have part of your drawing that's going along this edge, it's close to that corner, you can write your signature along that edge if you want to. I've had some kids kind of curve it to the edge of a bike, so if they had a wheel right here or part of their drawing, they'll actually sign it along that edge. Perfectly fine, but keep it down here in the bottom right corner. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just put my typical S. Gower, just real small. Okay? You guys can do it in print. You can do it in cursive. It's totally up to you. Okay? So the next step for us is to actually cut these, and that I will show you how to do over at the paper cutter.